Your lighting is beautiful, and I've already hit record. But it doesn't even matter that your lighting is beautiful, Mallory, because you are beautiful.
You really know how to make me smile today. I needed a little bit of that.
Yay! Well, as much as it is very difficult during Suicide Prevention Month to smile or be happy when we're going to talk about some might call deep stuff, we know that we have to do it, and we can still smile because laughter really is the best medicine. So maybe a few laughs, maybe some tears, who knows?
We're known to do both.
We could do both. We were going to be topless on this show, so
True.
right, Mallory?
Not too late. It's not too late.
Too late. See, we can laugh and talk about hard things at the same time. So I wanted to tell everybody before we got started who you are and how I met you. How's that sound?
Sounds great.
The voice in the background. So Mallory Tai Taylor is the founder and CEO of MTT Innovations, which we will get to soon. Ironically, Mallory got a pop-up memory today of the day that we were sitting on a stage together talking about God knows what. We had an agenda. We have agendas, people. But when you connect two souls together that never knew each other, but then do, and it just takes off, we just let it happen, whatever happened on that stage. But it was the Working Women of Tampa Bay Conference, and I was poorly interviewing you about being the co-founder and CEO of assessURhealth.
Yeah. You're crazy.
1 year ago. And oh, how much has changed in a year. Not just a pandemic, but you have branched out on your own and you are killing it, I'm sure. Before I let you talk, Mallory, I want everybody to know I was introduced to Mallory through Jessica Ravelli, the founder of Working Women of Tampa Bay. I had just released my book about mental health, The Broken Road to Mental Health in Life and in Business, and she said, I bet you would be a good fit with interviewing Mallory. So before I decided to get on that stage and interview Mallory, I thought it might be a good idea that we connect in person. So I drove all the way to Tampa, where she used to be, but a year has changed everything. She is now located in the cool downtown chic and hip St. Petersburg. But I drove all the way to Tampa, and you had to catch a flight for Atlanta that day. I'll never forget. And I kept talking.
I almost missed my flight.
Almost missed your flight, which is pretty much the way it goes when I meet somebody that I connect with so deeply from our first hello. So, Mallory, I'm going to stop talking. You don't have a flight to catch. We're in a pandemic, for God's sakes. But I want to just hear a little bit about your journey to where you were and where you are today.
So from the beginning, I will go back a little bit because of what we're talking about and its importance. When I founded assessURhealth in 2015, I had just lost a dear friend of mine to suicide, and she had served in the armed forces as well as served our community. And she was dealing with some really difficult issues, as we all can imagine. And in addition to abuse, she also suffered from substance abuse to kind of mask and deal with her pain, and the self-management that we do in everyday life, right?
Yep.
And she tried to reach out for help with the VA and other resources that just weren't available to her then, and found that there was no way out, which was devastating for all of us that knew her and loved her. And more so was the questions that came afterwards. You know, how could we have helped? How could we have changed this? How do we keep this from happening to other people? And at that time, I was also already in healthcare and in technology. So it just made sense to try to match the two issues that I was really seeing and create a technology that could help screen and have physicians intervene more urgently than we were seeing before. So that's really why that happened. That's why I became a mental health advocate and really trying to change DC as much as I possibly could, and the hearts and minds of physicians, you know, globally actually, and different countries, and how they look at healthcare and mental health in that capacity. We saw so much of it being segregated but really we needed to look at the body as a whole and the mind as really that engine that's so important. And really mental health is the first step in any other physical health. So that's what I really have been doing for the past few years. And then I had the opportunity to sell assessURhealth. So it was acquired in December of 2019, right before the pandemic. And really tried to then go and focus on consulting for several different businesses, from healthcare to technology to government, nonprofit, anywhere in between, and really help them be successful in their strategic planning and initiatives, but also have them understand the importance and the underlying mental health that's there and how they can support it and build it up in their franchises or their companies or in their communities. So I still get to play the mental health advocate, but I get to do it in several different ways now, which is nice.
Well, it's amazing. So this friend of yours that lost her life due to the horrific, almost it's like a pandemic of its own, mental health and suicide. It's always the ones, right, that are like, I was so happy and she was so helpful and nobody knew and nobody understood the signs and why and all these questions after, right? And you brought that up before. I'd like to try, both of us together, to try to navigate through what you've learned since, so we can help the audience pay attention a little more to the signs. Although I must say, and I'll talk a little bit more myself about what that experience was like for me, that we as people, me, myself, that are depressed are very good at hiding.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that we might be considering leaving the earth.
There are so many things. I've stayed up, I'm sure you know this from losing a lot of people too, and experiencing depression yourself, but I've spent several nights thinking about all these different signs that popped into my head and going, oh my gosh, well, that was a trigger. That was a red flag. That was whatever. Yeah, she was really good at it. She actually wasn't bipolar, but she still had what I called mini manic moments, right? So there were some seclusions where all of a sudden she would go in from, let's do this, I'm really happy, let's go here, let's go there, the center of the party, the whatever, wherever you were, she was the center of attention type of situation. And she seemed so happy and wanted everybody else to join in the party and smile and laugh, and she was so focused on that. And then she would go to, oh, I don't really want to go out tonight, I don't really want to go out this weekend, oh, I'm just processing whatever's going on. And she would make really good excuses for why she didn't want to be with anybody or why she didn't want to go out. I think we all took it as, oh, she was hanging out with somebody else, or she was with her family this weekend, or she was with friends. And she was really good at convincing us that she was fine. But I think it's the half smiles and the half truths and the little mini manics of the high to the low and back and forth that was definitely a trigger. I think we all noticed she started drinking more than usual. I will never use the word normal because I don't think there is a normal amount of drinking that exists, but someone who drank maybe a couple glasses of wine or a vodka soda or whatever would all of a sudden start doing a bottle of wine a night, or a bottle and a half. And she was very petite, so that was a lot, right?
Yeah.
And I think we all didn't really want to judge. We weren't trying to be like, okay, well, you have a problem here, but like, let's try to do activities that don't involve drinking. She really loved working out, so I was like, well, let's go work out, let's go on the boat, let's go kayaking, let's do this, and then let's not have alcohol involved. But she turned to narcotics as well, because she was having a lot of physical pain. In addition to that, was because it was manifesting, obviously. And again, I now know that these are all sign after sign after sign building up. But back then they seemed like they were individualized. They were secluded. They weren't all conducive and all at the same time. So those are all things when people start self-medicating with anything, whether it be alcohol, drugs, any type of situation, That's a problem. Any kind of addictive trait, because people always assume, well, it's only because of alcohol or substance that can cause that. But if they're showing addictive personalities or manic personality with anything, those are all signs you need to pay attention and have a conversation and ask.
Yeah.
Ask.
That's the big thing. Yeah.
I think people are so afraid to hurt someone's feelings or step on toes or, be out of line. Like how, I think people are like, well, how dare you ask me if I'm okay? I think you'd find a lot of people will not be that way. If they
Yeah.
are in trouble, you asking could be the difference between them actually going through and ending their life, or you saving them. And if they're not, and if they're not, then okay, so what? You asked, you cared. What's the harm in asking at that point? So I think being aware and being okay and comfortable enough to be uncomfortable with the situation and kind of rock the boat and just say, are you okay?
Yeah.
And just listen.
Mm-hmm.
You don't have to put judgment in. You don't even have to be like, well, I've noticed you've done this and this and this and this. There doesn't need to be any judgment in there whatsoever. Just be there and listen. I think that that's such a powerful tool that everyone has access to, and yet they don't use it.
Oof, it's so true. I shared this recently that I know the one reason that the therapist that I was with when I was 21, when I had just stopped drinking and using drugs, he asked me in a session if I had suicidal thoughts. And I broke down and I'm hysterical crying, and I said yes. And that was the beginning of the end of isolation with my depression. It wasn't until that moment, because nobody had asked me. Everybody knew I was depressed. I mean, it was very obvious. I had been traumatized, and I was just coming off of drugs and alcohol, a really hard run for a few years, but nobody asked me that question. Are you having suicidal thoughts?
Yeah.
And I felt like I was, it is so simple, but it is such a difficult question to ask. It's a difficult word to say. Suicide prevention, not calling it something else. A lot of people, talk right now, especially in this pandemic, about like anxiety and stress. And yes, those things are happening, but there's a real big picture about, someone's mental health. If it's being overpowered and they are not talking to anybody, or isolation is huge. I every time I hear the story of somebody that has ended their life by suicide, I'm in my head, I'm going, yeah, me too, yeah. Like I was the canceling queen. And it's funny because now today it's probably one of the many reasons why I'm always so hurt and offended when somebody cancels on me.
I saw that post that you had made recently, yes, and it made me think about it because I've been guilty of that for sure. I think one of the first times when we met, when you drove all the way over to Tampa and I was catching that flight to Atlanta, I think I was honest with you and told you, I'm like, I came so close to canceling this because I just wasn't in the right headspace. And it ended up being the best thing that could have ever happened in that situation. So you never know. I think that's part of life, but I think the isolation is so real, especially during this, situation that we're facing in 2020. That already, all of these things already existed in our life, but now we're putting even more stress and strain and on our relationships and personal, professional, everywhere in between. So I think it's really important to show up and be vocal and be an ear for our friends, especially the ones that seem like they're the strongest and don't need it. They're probably the ones that are suffering the most.
Yes.
Yeah, I think that's a common misconception that occurs. They see strong, independent people, and they're like, well, I don't need to reach out to them. They're fine. If you looked at,
I love them.
Oh yeah, especially if they exist in this world of healthcare or mental health, it's like, oh, well, they're definitely fine. They know exactly what to do, and sometimes they're the ones that really do need to be reached out to. with my friend who I lost, that was the same situation. She seemed so strong. I mean, Air Force. She was in the military, a beautiful woman that kicked butt in the military, and then was opening up her own, exercise franchise and all this kind of stuff. Was in great shape. Did all the Iron Man, the equivalent or whatever. She didn't need anybody to ask her if she was okay. Well, she ended up needing it the most. But I think we're really good. Strong people are really good at compartmentalizing and trying to hide things when it comes to that feelings, trying to glaze over it and be there for everybody else. What can I do for you? How can I help you? And we forget the me time that's involved in that. And to be honest and open with our friends is quite interesting.
It is so true. I don't, you might be too young for this, Mallory, but I was called Dear Abby as,
Exactly.
remember Dear Abby?
Yes.
Well, my mom,
Paper.
who actually just walked into my house, she's outside in the backyard swimming in our pool, which I love to see that because, she's part of saving my life, so she could do whatever she wants.
Absolutely.
I remember helping everybody and just really being attracted to people that were in drama. People that, yeah, right.
Chaos. Yep.
Chaos.
Addicted to people and chaos. I know that very well.
Yeah, I was always, here my parents are still married 51, 52 years later. There's like hardly any divorce in my family, a very stable home, private education, the whole thing. But if somebody was divorced or, there was an alcoholic in a home or the whatever it was, I wanted to like rescue them. That's all I wanted to do. I just wanted to help.
Mm-hmm.
And then all of that, was gone. And I was left with all of this stuff and I couldn't ask for help. I couldn't even ask because I didn't even know how to verbalize what was happening.
Mm-hmm.
So it all just went away. So, with your friend also using the drugs and alcohol, I mean, that was me. I just went hard and the drugs got stronger and the alcohol was more and more consumption. But then when it was gone, it was like, I would just rather be anywhere than on earth because I can't handle what's going on inside of my mind, and asking for help being the hardest thing to do. Especially
you just wanted the quiet and the numbing effect to occur.
Yes. Look at us. We went from talking about going topless to death. See how
Well, I have my tissues. I was ready because with you, there's always tears. I mean that in a good way.
Well, I mean, it's just so important for all of us right now to just have more real talks. Yeah. How could you and I even have known that we would still be talking a year later? That's number one. The only thing that was asked of me was to interview you on a stage. And I was like, with my claws in, like, I'm not letting her go. And
I think that shows how important it is to really have community. I think everyone's definition of community is different, but I know, you've really been instrumental in trying to form your own version of a mental health tool community type of situation here where we live. But we've discussed this, every person's definition of community is different and what they need to be successful and healthy and well and all of those things. And I think we are our own community for each other sometimes. We don't talk every day, we don't talk every month, but I think we have like a little spidey sense. I know you do at least, where it's like, I feel like I need to reach out to her. I feel like she needs just a little, hey, I know you exist, I'm thinking about you. If you need me, I'm here, type of thing. And I think we need more of that.
We do. Well, I want more of that. And I bet you want more of that. So maybe after this, somebody will text us or something. Who knows?
Yeah, I know.
Text us. See if we're doing okay.
Yeah. Email us. Somebody.
But whatever you do, call because we probably won't answer the phone.
Yeah, no, definitely won't answer the phone. Don't FaceTime me either, because I could have a curler in my hair that does absolutely nothing for my Asian flat black hair, but I still put the giant pink curler in every morning, thinking it's going to give me some volume here.
And here I am thinking like your hair is fantastic.
No, thanks. Yeah, no.
It is. Anybody
But
listening?
as you noticed, the pink curler did absolutely nothing. Just the hair is separating, it's falling flat,
Oh, you're
whatever
gorgeous.
thing.
Well, I guess because it's been 26 years now that I've been sober. I have only,
Amazing.
thank you. I love getting congratulated for not smoking crack anymore. Thank you. Please tell me again.
What's much bigger than that?
But honestly, I have just been very used to in my recovery groups of just, there's no fluff. There really isn't. I mean, it's almost funny that you and I are talking about hair because we're so not talking about hair kind of people.
No.
Just get right in there and I'm like, so hey, what messed you up? You know, what's your story?
What caused your downward spiral?
Right. What caused you to turn your life into a business? Why are you an entrepreneur? What happened in the corporate world to you? You know, all of that, like, I don't even want to hear the la la la. I want to hear the real. And
Yeah.
And I think that's why we connected and why, you know, when we talk about community, my community is not about fluff. My community is only about having these real conversations because it's very difficult to talk about, but very, very necessary. Very
Yeah, I think I mean, I'll just be completely blunt. With COVID, I've had some cyclical depression definitely come in, with just, I mean, I already suffer from that, but prior to this, but as you said, the anxiety, the stress is magnified times 10. And luckily I do have some really close friends that know what to look for and will FaceTime me, one specifically, and tell me, get out of your dark cave.
right.
Get out. Yeah, I FaceTime you because if I text you, you can easily say you're out of it. But I know you're not. So this is why I FaceTime you. Get out of bed, get out of your dark cave and go do something productive like exercise or get outside or go work, whatever. Get out of the dark cave.
That is such a good friend.
It really is. And she doesn't care. And there's no fluff there. And I can say the same thing to her, you know, when stuff's going on with her. But I think that's so important that you really have a partner that can be accountable in your life for you and help you to stay on that right track. And you're going to have, you know, I hate to use this cliche statement, you're going to have bad days. But that doesn't mean that when you are depressed, someone telling you, oh, it's just a bad day is the same thing. That's not the same thing. Depression is completely different than just having a bad day. But with depression, you're going to have some bad days that are worse for you, and you're going to have good days too. So,
and so many things, like, you know, because I've said many times I am only afraid of two things. Number one is depression, and number two are hurricanes. Welcome to Florida, Sharon.
You moved to Florida.
Yeah. Well, I didn't know how scared I was until I got here, and Irma came. I had no clue. So now I have two things. So I always said that I only feared one thing, and that was depression. But, you know, now I'm doing guided meditations versus doing meditation because the quiet of my mind isn't healthy for me right now. So I'm very aware of my own triggers. So when I listen to a guided meditation that's very positive, I mean, I might cry through my whole meditation, and that's good because I'm really cleansing all of that stuff that I'm feeling, and I'm at least releasing it instead of repressing it.
Right.
You know, and having these kind of conversations are so necessary for all of us, not just somebody that has lost somebody to suicide or attempted suicide like myself. I think that it is important that this is a part of our daily, you know, that we're checking in with each other, that we're asking each other, not, you know, how are you, but like, how are you, Mallory? How's it going over there?
Right. Well, I think too is that we're not embarrassed to discuss it. I think is a huge thing too, by the way. Yes. I think these conversations are so important because we're sitting here and saying, you know, we've experienced these things firsthand, or we still experience them, and it's still a struggle sometimes, you know, on a daily basis. But the stigma has to go away, and we're not ashamed to discuss it. We're not ashamed that we deal with it. We're proud of the fact that we're fighters, and we fight for this all the time. and that yet we still are successful businesswomen who can do both. And just because we've had, you know, a mental wellness conversation surround us doesn't mean that we're not successful, and the stigma didn't stop us from doing that. It wasn't an obstacle that was unsurmountable. Can't speak today, excuse me.
Speaking quite
So I think that that's also important, because I think there's a lot of people who are still scared to come out and discuss it, or to ask for help, or, you know, to acknowledge it to themselves even, that they struggle, because they just, that stigma is still real as much as we fight it every day.
It is, and it's and I have so much empathy for people that are not ready to speak about it, because, you know, I was 25 years sober before I said a word in the business world about what had gone on in my life. That's not to say I did not disclose myself to many people through the years, but I would have never thought to speak about it publicly. The only reason, just like you, was that you saw that there's too much of a stigma about these things, and people are dying because of it.
Mm-hmm.
So for me, I've always thought it would be very selfish of me not to give back what was freely given to me, which was my life. And the reason that I was able to move through my depression and to move through my recovery of not drinking and using drugs anymore was because I had people around me that love me enough to do like what your friend does to you today. Right. And makes you get out of bed. Like if I don't show up to a meeting, you know, I'm going to get a phone call eventually. If I don't talk to Cynthia, my mentor in New York, and it's been a few weeks, I'm going to get a call, and I'm scared of that call.
Oh yeah.
You know,
it's not. How's the weather today?
It's never that. I wish sometimes. More like, where have you been, and what are you doing, and are you okay? And before you know it, you know, I'm crying, because most of the stuff that strong women do, I will say, I can't speak for you men, so whatever. If you're listening, I'm sorry. But we take care of people. That's what we do. Mm-hmm. We make sure that everybody's okay. And we look very strong because we are strong. And for myself, owning 2 businesses, and for you owning this business and doing, I mean, listen, I'm just going to let you guys know. Listen, Mallory has been honored in numerous publications. Oh. She was also the finalist for EY's Entrepreneur of the Year. Tampa Bay Business Journal's up and there is a full paragraph you can read in her bio about who she is and what she's done.
No, we don't need to read that.
Yeah, I mean, I won't read it all right now, but it's so super impressive. And you can still say that I have struggled. You know, I am struggling.
Absolutely.
We all have. If you haven't struggled through this pandemic, you're actually just full of shit.
Agreed.
Agreed.
Even if you don't believe it's really a pandemic, you still have struggled through it.
You're just struggling about the fact that you can't go into a store without a mask. So you are in fact struggling mentally.
You are struggling. Yes. You're getting yelled at, I'm sure, by somebody.
Mallory, is there anything that you can think of to leave? Like every episode that I'm doing, especially this month, I want to be really thoughtful about that person that is struggling, listening to this. You know, what is the thing that you do for yourself when you're feeling down, besides getting that phone call from your friend? But can you think of just a few things that you can offer up to the audience?
I think it's very easy to be hard on yourself. And I think it's almost easier for people like us to find all the reasons of why we don't matter, or maybe why we're not perfect, or what we've messed up, or our flaws and imperfections. And I think in times like that, it's really difficult to do this, but I try really hard to think of 3 things that I'm proud of that I've done. Whether that could even be helping somebody else, or making someone else's life better, or, you know, a professional achievement, whatever it could be, a small thing, like you went for a mile walk yesterday and you haven't been able to do that, or, you know, you've done so many steps, whatever it is, finding little things that you can reflect on a daily basis, and just before you go to bed at night, even when you're struggling of maybe I don't want to wake up tomorrow, or it would just be easier, whatever the situation is, whether I'm a burden or I think I'm a burden. Think of 3 things of why you matter, and why you're special, and why you're important, and why the world would be a less beautiful place if you weren't in it. And
Yeah.
again, I know that's really difficult when you're at your dark and very reflective, deep moments where you're easily finding all the flaws. But remember that you are imperfect, but there's still amazing things about you, each and every one of us.
Absolutely. I love that. I definitely, I had a friend, Mickey Diamond in New York, that used to tell me, because I used to share with him a lot about my depression.
Mm-hmm.
He used to tell me to look at the record. He actually said it like this: look at the record, because he smoked.
No, that would not be one of the things that would be good.
No, not at all. But he used to tell me to look at the record, look at all of the things that I have survived.
Mm-hmm.
Look at all of the things that this is just one more thing. And if we can hold on for just one more day, just one more day, the sun will come up and you might have some new opportunity, and you matter. I just want everybody to know that they matter.
Absolutely, they matter.
Yeah, I didn't think
and I also, it doesn't hurt that I have the most adorable dog ever, that anytime I swear it's like the Green Mile, if you've never seen that. I think it's Michael Duncan is the actor who's in there, who is able to take away the pain and anxiety from people. And my dog has horrific anxiety, but I swear it's because he senses when I'm struggling and he comes over and he knows it.
Mm.
And I feel like he's trying to suck the anxiety out of me. And so he's a very sweet dog, but it's always helpful to have an animal.
I agree with
really
you.
Are great emotional support animals.
Yeah, no, I agree. Hey, listen, there is this great book that I have, which of course I can't find because it's not in front of me right now, but it's called The Hilarious World of Depression. You would love it. There's a podcast called The Hilarious World of Depression. And he gives all these recommendations of what you can do if you're depressed or suicidal. Yep. And one of them is to have a pet. I mean, Charlie Brown is the love of my life. I mean, my husband, who might be listening. He is too. Charlie Brown, these dogs are wonderful. So anyway, we probably have exhausted everybody with our brilliance. So let's let them stop suffering through it. Mallory, it is always so good to see you and to hear you. I'm so proud of you. I'm so glad that you're out on your own and that you're helping so many people in the world of technology and healthcare and IT, because we certainly need you in the healthcare world.
Thank you.
Thank you for
always great speaking with you.
Mwah. So don't forget, if you mention that you have seen the show or listened to the podcast, Tai Technology, 3 months for free.